Trying to improve your improvisation rhythm can feel like a real uphill battle. So, what we're going to do today is look at just one aspect, one skill that can really transform the way you play. If we haven't met before, my name's Sean. I studied with Barry Harris for almost 2 decades. I taught 46,000 one-to-ones, but now I spend my time working with Jazz Skills members, showing them how to get fluent in their playing and get some real skills rather than just copying licks and phrases but never actually speaking the language. So if you're interested in that, then check out jazzskills.com. And Jazz Skills members, I know many of you follow along here, so I'll be creating some rhythmic displacement phrases for you to be practicing as well. So keep an eye out for those. By the time this comes out, they're going to be there. So today we're going to look at rhythmic displacement. Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. All it means is taking a phrase and then beginning it from a different point in the bar. So if you begin on 1, maybe next time you begin it on 4 or 3 or something else. But I'm going to give you a very simple rule to follow. We will, first of all, look at some examples of rhythmic displacement in tunes you may have heard before, and then we'll look at how we can create our own phrases from it and practice it and that sort of thing. So first of all, rhythmic displacement in action. Let's say if I played a phrase like simple eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and. One of my favorite ways to do this is wherever you begin, so we began on 1, repeat it, but next time begin it a whole beat earlier. So next time it will begin on 4. So if your phrase is 1 and 2 and 3, then next time it's going to begin on the end of the same bar. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and. The same phrase. Can you see how different it sounds? Because the emphasis of it changes. It dances in a different way. It has a different life and shape to that very first phrase, even though it's still just 4 eighth notes, isn't it? This time at the piano. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3. 4 and 1 and. That's what it is, okay? Let's hear some examples of tunes you may have heard before that do exactly this. The beboppers did quite a lot of this. So Charlie Parker in Au Privave, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2. Have you heard that before? So what's he doing? 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and what we did, right? 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and. Another example would be Straight No Chaser, Thelonious Monk. So let's just look at those first 2 phrases. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and. So he's got an extra note than the Au Privave Charlie Parker, right? So he's still got the 4 eighth notes, 1 and 2 and, but he's beginning on the 4 and. So he's got 1 eighth note before, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and. So because he began on the 4 and, the next phrase is going to begin a whole beat earlier on the 3 and that's what's going to make it dance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Later on, he does some more displacement. He took this line, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 before extending it. So let's look at that again. He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. So he had 1 and 2, and then he had and 1, and then he had and 4, right? So it's coming back, and that was a displacement times 3, if you like. So those are some examples. Let's see how we could create a couple of our own. So seeing as we've been talking about blues tunes today, why don't we stick with the blues in F? So F7 to B flat 7, okay? And if you don't even know a blues, I'm working with F7 and B flat 7, which means I'm using the F7 scale on the F7 and the B flat 7 scale on the B flat. And actually the only thing that changes between those two, this is F7. And if I go from F but play the B flat 7 scale, just the A, the third of F gets flattened, okay? So they have those similarities, which means creating phrases can become quite simple as well. I'll show you what I mean. Let's say if we take a simple, we took 4 eighth notes before, why don't we do the same? So if we say 1 and 2 and, very simple phrase starting on the 5th of F. 1 and 2 and 3. Now, if B flat 7 is in the next bar, then the only thing we really need to do is flat that A, right? As I spoke about in the scale part a moment ago. So it'll be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2. And then I would probably extend the next part. So 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Something like that. Let me do it again while I remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And that will often inspire me to just play an extended phrase and improvise from there. So it depends how much experience you have with improvisation. If you're quite fluent, then you can take that and run with it and just use it as a stimulus to set off whatever your next phrase is. And if you're, just looking for rhythmic improvements, then you can just work on those little things. Let's do one that begins on an and. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. And it doesn't have to be 4/8 notes, it's just what we're doing. But if we start on the end of 1, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Then the next one I'm going to do is going to begin a whole beat early on the end of 4. So it'll be like this: learn to feel it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2. You see how it starts to dance more. And we just got to pick our notes now. It could be any notes you want that work within that F7 and B flat 7, but let's find some. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Again, I just had to flat the A, right? 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And I could just continue from there if I've got something to say. Do this slowly enough to figure out ideas in time. This is a time exercise, and most people seem to be certainly level 2s. I teach on 3 levels, as you may know. Level 1, figuring out the chords and progressions and getting moving. Level 2, the one that most people are stuck at, a few tunes but no real freedom. Level 3, play more than 10 standards fluently and go from there. But we could now take that and say, well, what if we didn't start both of them in the same place melodically? So it could be 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Something like that. Yeah. So I've got 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Could be that. Doesn't even have to be the same pattern. I'm just looking for the same rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Like that. Fine. A bit of further study to just be thinking about is that the phrases do not need to happen exactly after each other. So for example, let's say if I just took a simple 1 and 2 and. I'll just do some improv, which is free, so I'm not going to think of a particular phrase, but you'll notice that when I come back to do the displacement, it's sometime later. That's fine. I'm going to repeat it to a 4 and 1 and, but not immediately. Let's just see what happens. There'll be some improv in the middle as well. But you'll notice that it gives the whole phrase or the whole improv more shape. Here goes. So for example, that'll be a 1 and 2 and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and. So that same thing, I moved it forward this time. It doesn't have to move backwards to 4. I went from 1 to the 2. That's okay as well. But the repeat of that motif happened later. It didn't happen exactly after. This time I'll take a 1 and 2 and at some point, let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and. Let's go for the repeat now. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. I think that's what it was. So the first phrase on 1, the next one on 4. And even though they're far apart, it kind of brings everything together and makes it feel like you're not just doing a bit of this and then a bit of that, but there's some sort of poetry in your rhythm. I hope you found something here for your playing. And if it's time to level up your improv and playing in general and to get fluent or go from there, then come and see us on Jazz Skills, where there's a developing fluency course to get you fluent in the first place. And then we'll focus on things like voicings and improvisation and accompanying and Barry Harris movements and all kinds of things, plus support from me and a great vibrant community of like-minded people too. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.